Welcome to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno. Today's guest is all the way from Duval County. Dilla, Jaguars Twitter personality, very famous for the comedic content of his tweets and to help Jaguars fans from the severe depression they've suffered over the last decade minus 2017. Dilla, it's a great honor to have you, brother. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, man, thanks for reaching out and having me on. This is awesome.
You are a Jacksonville native, born and raised. You have been a Jaguars fan that I would assume for the entirety of the franchise's existence. The first thing I've got to get right off the bat here is, have you ever considered not being a Jaguars fan? Because for someone like myself, I'm not from Jacksonville. I chose to be a Jaguars fan. And there's moments, I guess, in 2020, I was pretty close to, should I really keep cheering for this team? Is it ever going to get any better? But for people like yourself or Solly or Cap, like you guys are kind of like born into it. So how do you handle like the shittiness, I guess, that the team has endured? And have you ever thought of giving up on the team?
So have I actually ever thought about giving up on the team? No, because I know at the end of the day, I'm still going to have season tickets on Sunday. I'm still going to wake up early and go down to the stadium. I can't even really even embrace what it would be like to be at my house while there was a game going on, 20 minutes down the road. I don't know what that would be like, but I do say in jest very often, well, if they just go to London, then I don't have to be a fan anymore. But that's jokes. I mean, obviously I don't want them to go to London. I do get mad at them. This year, actually, even all of 2020, where we lost every game except for the opener. I stayed for almost the whole game. I always stay for the whole game, but this is the first year where we had a couple games where we would do something goofy late, like whether it be that flea flicker or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, I've seen enough, but that's just because that's 20 games of losing that we just went through. You know what I mean? So after a while you get battered fan syndrome, but I'm not ever going anywhere. They're in the heartstrings. You can't get rid of that.
With how the Jaguars have performed in the last 20 some games, we've obviously seen more losses than any other NFL franchise and have literally the worst record in the NFL since 2013. What are some of the positives that you take away from being a Jaguars fan and trying to embrace the fandom as much as possible? Because any person that would talk to yourself, I guess, who's from outside of Jacksonville, or to someone like myself, would be like, man, it's only suffering. Like, why would you do that? How can you ever enjoy it? It's just terrible. And all the jokes. And I'm sure you've heard all the ways that people can make fun of you from other fan bases, but what are the positives that you take away from being a part of the community?
I would think the most positive thing, and I think this is why everyone should, if they have a sports team that they like, you should get as involved as you can, because the sense of community that you make with these people is truly through the roof. The other fans of the team, some of them, they're my friends, man. That's family, dude. I met a lot of these people 2013 at the NFL draft in New York City. Didn't know them before. Cap, Solly, the whole gang. Hey, I don't know you, but come to the draft and hang out with me. And here we are, we're pushing on 10 years of friendship, and we met each other, never knew each other before, whole different state, and just became more than friends. So I think the sense of community is probably my favorite thing. I mean, even this year in the off season, before we got to football, the giving and the donations and the stuff like that we did as a community, as I say again, I think that's the coolest part about being fans of a certain team, besides if your team is very good and you win and you get to enjoy that kind of stuff. The friends I've made along the way, that's the saying, that's genuine. That is why I probably would never leave it, because all these people that they're in it with me. I know they're in it with me. So who else would you want to be in the trenches with, except, other people who love the same thing you do?
You talked about the donations that you put forth as a community to help welcome Trevor Lawrence and his wife to Jacksonville, which is, I don't think anything that any fan base across the NFL has done in recent years that really jumps off the page. Unless there is, and I'm wrong, and I just don't follow fan bases of other teams that closely. But right. You were the one that spearheaded it, correct?
Yeah. So I jokingly tweeted hey, who wants to buy me this toaster for myself? And Cap quoted the tweet and was like, hey, bro, let's just go all the way out. Let's try and buy him a couple items. And I mean, we're talking $1,000 were raised in the first 20 minutes. And at that point I was like, all right, we can totally do this, but we're not going to buy the, soon to be multimillionaire all of his wedding gifts. Let's do something good with this. So then we got everybody involved, everyone's brains together, and we found a couple charities that we could donate to. So it was really awesome. And we had been doing stuff earlier in the year. It didn't get like that kind of traction because it wasn't Trevor Lawrence involved. Everyone knows that when you spearhead something like that with an athlete or a figure, everyone's going to get involved. The Clemson media jumped in right away, and then it went national. And from that point on, it was bonkers. I mean, it was on the NFL Network. It was huge. So I think that was like really awesome. But again, that's the community that I like mentioned earlier. Like, we're so like such a strong group, tight knit group. Like, hey, like, let's help these people out, and we do it. Or if it's something fun like Trevor Lawrence and a toaster, like, we'll do that too.
When I saw that, I was like, wow, these guys really care. Like, this is something that's more than just following a team, because the old adages I always hear from fans or people that are non-fans is, well, you're just cheering for laundry, right? Like that Seinfeld joke. Like, why would you care so much and doesn't put food on the table or a roof over your head? But it is more than that, clearly. And it is more than that because you make it more than that. And you can make a positive out of that. It doesn't have to be something that's negative or consumes you, or you don't have to be some of those people that are breaking TVs on Instagram and Twitter just for the bit or anything like that. And it's really good on you guys to spearhead things like that help others when you clearly don't have to go out of your way to do that.
And yeah, that's what it's about. And kind of how you said, like, smashing TVs or burning jerseys. Like, if you're not going to wear your Jalen Ramsey jersey anymore, like, donate it. Like, someone will wear it. I promise someone will wear it. You know what I mean? So that's for a whole nother day. But the group really does give. Like, that is their goal. Like, give. And that's what Bolt City Brigade, which is, Cap's thing. And we have a spinoff with our podcast, and they sell merch now. And it's a huge 20,000, people are involved in town. And that, like, all that is dope. And all that started with, like, hey, like, let's meet one time a year and do some kind of charity raffle at a brewery. And like, it grew into like tailgating and raging and having fun and going to away games. And that's, it's just genuine. Like, when you get together as a community to do good, and then you like throw a little bit of fun in it, like, who's not going to have a blast?
What's the most fun away game you've been to for the Jaguars?
Oh man. So the most fun away game, like genuine fun, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers playoff game in 2017. So that was an all-timer. Yeah, that was elite. Now we lost this game, but the Redskins game, now Washington football team. I can't even remember the year, maybe 2014, 15.
2014, yeah. They lost it 40-something to 15, I remember.
Right. So that was the game Bob Griffin got hurt, and we got Kirk Cousins played like a ton, and they like spanked us, just like, walking back. So that stadium is terrible. It is a dump. It's no good. People were like brutal, like trying to start fights left and right. But on the way back to our bus, like, we went deep into that game, probably 200 people. So we had like 2 or 3 of those big 50-seater buses. We're all walking back. It was the funniest comedy hour. Like, we literally just got spanked 40-something to 10, like you said, or whatever it was. And we're out here busting jokes so hard that I like forgot that we just got spanked inside the stadium. And again, it's just like, when you get around the people you really like being around, and if you can't make fun with them, then you're probably just not in the right spot. So I could go for days, though. I think I've been to 18 away games now.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. How many Jaguars games have you been to? Or I guess how long have you been a season ticket holder, then I should ask?
So growing up, so like you mentioned it earlier, like, I have been a fan of the Jaguars my whole life. I was born in 91. First games were in 95. My parents were actually inaugural season ticket holders. So like, shout out to them. They're like the reason why I'm about it. My parents had season tickets from 95 till about 2004 or 5, when me and my sister got really active in sports. And we still went often whenever we weren't like playing in a tournament on the weekend. But they didn't have it for a period. So maybe from like 2005 to 2010, we didn't have them. We just went here and there. But as soon as I graduated high school in 2010, I got my own tickets. So from like 2011 to like current, I've been to every game minus one, because I like had to go to a funeral, like family stuff pops up. Yeah. But yeah, and it's actually funny, this year I missed the first preseason game against Cleveland because I was on family vacation, and that was actually the first game I had missed since 2007.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Have you been to all the playoff games that they've been to, and I guess in your like conscious child, like
no, I didn't go to the ones against the Patriots back early on, but that was like in 2017. That was my thing. I was I was still younger, poor, like 25-year-old, like trying to figure life out. And I like woke up one morning and I was like, you know what? These dudes might not be good again for 8, 10 years. And like, that's what's kind of looking like what's happening. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'm just gonna like max a couple credit cards out. I'm gonna go to all these games. I'm gonna, like, because we started with Buffalo in town. I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers game, and then I went to New England. Like I flew back to Jacksonville for 3 days, and then went right back to New England for the game that next week. And that was an experience too. Laurenti McCray, I actually ran into like some of his family members in Pittsburgh, and they like helped me get tickets. Like I had to pay like an arm and a leg for them, but
Wow.
they were the ones who like connected me with like the opportunity to like to pay the money to get the tickets. And it was sweet because they were family tickets. So I got to sit with like Blake Bortles' dad and mom and brother all sat behind me, and like Miles
amazing.
Jack's parents were sitting with, like, so it was a really cool experience. Like not only was I sitting with Jaguar fans, but they were like diehards because it was like their family like playing. So it was really cool.
I must know, how much were tickets to that game minimum to the AFC Championship in 2018?
So you're talking about to the Patriots game? I mean, yeah, the Patriots game. $450 a piece, and we sat in the like almost very last row in the upper deck.
Oh, well, I mean, that's still pretty expensive. I was gonna think it was gonna be like over $1,000, but
so if you sat anywhere but where we sat in the very upper corner, they were. So my buddy Frank, he's on Jag's Twitter, Frank Vavrick. He lives in the area, so I like crashed at his place. But him and his girl bought tickets, and they bought tickets for $1,000 a piece.
yeah, I was thinking. So I mean, even looking this year, I've been trying to see, well, maybe I can make a Jaguars game late in the year as either at New England or home to the Colts. And it's like at New England is like $95 minimum. I'm like, man, unless they win, is it really worth it? Or unless I do the Bolster Brigade tailgate or do other things in the Boston area, because that's so much just to sit at the top of Gillette Stadium. And it's not like here in Canada, in the CFL stadiums, you can sit at the very, very top and you have an amazing view as if you're sitting in the lower bowl of the NFL stadium. If you're sitting at the top of or I guess TIAA Bank Field or even Gillette, you need binoculars. Like it's impossible to see, and it almost doesn't even make it worth it because you're so far out of it that you're just more concerned probably engaging with fans that are around you than actually being able to see what's going on.
Yeah, most stuff. So first off, if I was you, I would save your money and hit a Jaguar game early in the season in Jacksonville. That's the way to do it, especially like right now, you know, they're a 1-win team. The energy is not going to be there towards the end of the year if the trend stays the same. Maybe they turn it around and like we're fighting for a playoff spot or something crazy happens and I'll wake up from my dream in a second. But but like just genuinely speaking, like when we want our friends from out of town to come in, it's always for that like first or second game because the energy is just through the roof. And next year, Trevor Lawrence's second year, like real expectations. I mean, I think you would have a blast. If I was you, to put like a couple dollars aside a day, come hang down with the boys. Still got a spot for you. I got extra room. Just holler, dude.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been down to one Jaguars game so far. And I mean, I guess I can tell a small story here where any person listening to this from Jacksonville would probably be a little confused as to why someone like myself would do this. But I really wanted to go to a Jaguars game after the 2017 season finished. I was like, I got to go to a game next year. They'll probably be better and blah, blah, blah. Then I was all excited and I bought a plane ticket and it was really, really cheap to go because I live in Winnipeg and I flew down from Winnipeg. I was going to go to Jacksonville and I bought tickets to go to the Colts game on December 2nd. But what happened was I bought tickets before the season started, and slowly but surely as the season went on, they started to lose and lose and lose and lose. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I feel so stupid. I could have just waited till whatever the day before and all these things. And I was supposed to go with a friend, but then he got accepted to med school. So I couldn't go. And I was like, well, I paid for a ticket. I have to go. So I ended up flying by myself to Jacksonville to watch the Jaguars play the Colts after they had lost 8 in a row or whatever. Yeah. And I ended up watching them blank the Colts 6-0. Yeah. The lowest scoring game of the season.
Cody Kessler.
Yeah. Cody Kessler, TJ Yeldon starting at running back. I didn't get to see the boats. I didn't get to see the sailboat, Leonard Fournette trying to turn between the tackles there. But lo and behold, after all the sadness and feeling beat up and thinking they were going to lose and I was going to be disappointed, I watched the Jaguars win one of the only games they played the rest of the season in 2018. And I came all the way from Winnipeg just to do that by myself. And when I interacted with lots of fans around the stadium, I was kind of moving around with lots of room. And I was like, man, if the people are willing to be this kind and friendly, even though their team's getting beaten up, what's going to happen when the team's good? It's going to be amazing. So that's my small little TED talk of how I went all the way to Jacksonville by myself to watch the one Jaguars game I've seen, they're 1-0. So I got to save it for when they can go 2-0.
Yeah, dude. No, you just need to come all the time. That's what it sounds like to me. They're undefeated when you when you watch them play in town. And I think if we talk like just regular season games, the 2017 against Seattle, who we ironically play this week, that game was like next level. Like between it being like one of the first sellouts forever, you know, Jefferson tried to jump into the stands. The DJ played Futures music the whole time because him and Russell Wilson were beefing with Sierra, you know, the love interest. So,
oh my goodness,
that was like, you know, next level. I know Eric Dunn and Andy have been on the pod before. And sitting with those guys, having the big Future, you know, cutouts, faces. It's such a blast, man. Like even when they're not good, it's fun. But if they just show us that little semblance of like we're gonna win a couple games, like that place is gonna be crazy.
I think it was Andy who was talking about how he's like, I had a migraine for like a month after that game, or something like that, because he was just yelling, screaming so loud. And I was like, that's just one season, like one drop of water in the bucket out of a decade. Yeah. And even I'm not sure if it was you or Cap, or for sure one of you guys, quote tweeting the highlight of Jamal Agnew's kick six this year. And it's like the stadium is going crazy and the team was bad. And it's 35, or like 90 whatever degrees Fahrenheit, 30 something degrees Celsius. People are setting on fire for a team that hasn't been good once in a decade. And could you imagine if this team was actually good all the time? Like they'd have the best fans in the NFL, no question. Like Patriots fans during the Brady era wouldn't even compare.
So yes, and that's the thing. That highlight is so crazy because it was at the end of the half. We were losing. It was hotter than hell. Like I think it was like 98, 99 in the stadium.
Bonkers.
Everyone was already underneath the concourse getting, you know, some relief from the sun, buying drinks. Halftime, you only got a couple, you know, 15 minutes. So you in and out trying to beat lines. And the stadium was already pretty empty to begin with. And when he starts running that thing back, I mean, I'm sitting in the end zone that he's running towards. He hits the seam, and then the Arizona Cardinals guy dives and misses. And at that point, my parents live in Minnesota now. They came down. My dad was like watching the game with me, and I started tapping him on the side, like, "Oh, he might do it. He might do it." And at that point, man, the volume in the stadium when the dude on the Cardinals dove and missed, cranked up to a place like loud. It hasn't been that loud since that Seahawks game. And we're talking a smaller crowd to begin with, and then you got like 30% of that crowd already underneath, and it was bumping, dude. So like you said, you know, you get a couple people in there. And we win a couple games, it's going to be a place to be. I agree with Urban Meyer when he says like we can make this a destination. There's no reason it can't. I mean, in 2 days they're going to play Florida Georgia there, and it's going to be nuts. It's always nuts. It has the capability of being insane. So we'll see.
That's something that I find is a very confusing part of the Jaguars right now, because everyone was talking about obviously the new era and blah blah blah. And then we saw the extreme disappointment that was the season opener against the Texans. And after I watched that, I just felt so sad and I was just like, man, like I kind of felt so ripped off. I was like, we've been waiting for how long, and they show up and lay an egg against the Texans. That's why when they were playing the Cardinals, I'm like, the Cardinals are going to smoke them by 70. Like, how is this team, like, if we can't get this right, we'll never get anything right. Like they're going to be sold, and we're going to just be sitting there like St. Louis fans, like, you know, with our piece in our hand, looking around like, what happened?
And that was it. I mean, I just remember, so we went to Houston, and I remember, you know, the first drive wasn't very good with the offense, but I was like, whatever, like, you know, rookie drive. And then it was like his third or fourth drive. He had that really nice, he rolled out right, hits Marvin Jones deep on the right side. And I'm like, okay, that was sick. Into the first quarter, they're coming at us. He throws a touchdown pass to Chris Monhertz. And I was like, all right, cool. Like this is like what everyone talked about. And as the game went on and like we worked on the last like 5 minutes of the second quarter was like a hell story. Like that was just brutal. But like as the game went on, just like you, I was like, man, I really one, believed them, thought they were going to be good. And two, I came to Houston to watch it because I couldn't not watch Trevor Lawrence's first start. And they played terrible. They couldn't even line up. You know what I mean? So I think that's like kind of one of the more damning things too, is like with the first win coming in London, it's not really that like, oh, they won overseas or anything, but like I went to 4 of the first 5 games I had homies go to the first 5 home games. They went to the couple in town and then one in Cincinnati, one in Houston, and they didn't see the win. And they go overseas to London, and that's where they catch their win. We're like, no, the only real Jaguar fans that are doing that now are the ones who live over there. Like people in Jacksonville don't really. All the ones who wanted to do that did that early in the process. And then no one has really that like glowing stories of the trip to London to watch that. They all come back with like, if you're going to London, go to London. Don't go to watch a Jaguars football game.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just kind of like, that's just more of like, the pain and sadness of being a Jaguars fan. You go to 5 games or 4 games and then they wait till they go overseas to win. But it's also expected. You just got to laugh at it. You know what I mean?
It's just, that's part of the punchline. You're going to go to every game all year, and then the one game you don't go to see them play is the game they're going to win. And that's usually how it ends up going. But I mean, for myself, I guess it was the inverse, where all the games I wanted to go to, they lost. And then the one game I just begrudgingly went to, they ended up winning. So maybe I'm just going to have to keep doing that.
Yeah, please. Like I said, you're always welcome. I've always got an extra room. I'll make you dinner. Like, come on down, dude.
Which opponent do you like to see the Jaguars play the most outside of the division? Because we always talk about, we hate the tuck the Titans and Colts and Texans, but what team do you just like, it gets you fired up whether they win or lose to play against them?
So yeah, even to just like go back on that, I think the division games are like the least exciting. Maybe it's because we're not great, or maybe it's because we play them all the time. But I get really excited for the NFC opponents, just because you play them in Jacksonville once every 8 years. So for this year, like being able to see Kyler Murray in person, I got to see him play for Oklahoma against Alabama and Miami. So like it was really cool just like seeing the difference in how he played for the Cardinals, for the Sooners back in the day. And I think that's like one of my favorite parts about having season tickets. I can say I've seen so many people play. I've seen Aaron Rodgers play. I've seen Peyton Manning. I mean, obviously he was in the division, but Tom Brady, I can go on and on and on. There's so many. The Jaguars have been terrible, but the one positive of having season tickets, I've seen these like all pros just like slice and dice us up and like live up to the hype. So that's like, again, finding positives in a bad situation. Like it's really cool. But I would say the NFC teams, the Packers are up there. 49ers are cool to see. The Cowboys are cool to see. Pretty much anyone with legacy that's not the Eagles. Their fans are terrible. Like, you can like try and mind your own business and they want to fight. So like I'm not about any of that life anymore. But it's the NFC legacy teams that I think are most exciting.
How do you find experiences are with away fans from other NFL teams? Because for someone like myself, we have the Canadian Football League, and there's no such thing as bandwagon jumping in it, because there's obviously only 9 teams, and you only if you don't cheer for the team in your region, it's because you don't like the league at all. So it's either you cheer for the team because you're a fan, or you don't pay attention to it. There's no, well, I live in Winnipeg, but I'm going to cheer for Hamilton. Like, unless the only exception would be if personal friends, family, whatever that have tied to it. That's the only way, right? So no fans are beefing each other to a point where there's like assault or people are screaming and swearing. Like the worst thing that'll ever happen is like someone will like once every several years, something happens like a physical altercation, and then it blows up on Twitter, and the team usually gives them tickets or helps them make up for it. But I've just heard things of, I guess, obviously America, everything's bigger, but Bills fans or certain fans are rude or just some are nice, some are not. But what has been your experience with away fans at Jaguars games, and also with fans when you're on the road for away games to see the Jaguars play?
So yeah, like I mentioned it earlier, the Washington football team fans are brutal. They're just like that was in the game. Like people would just walk up to you and like try and start swinging, and it's like that's lame. Like I'm not trying to do any of that. The Eagles fans, like I said, are no good. But the biggest problem with the fans in Jacksonville, with all the fans, I'll put them all collectively, the away fans, is they come in there and they tell you your team sucks. And I'm like, yes, I know. I'm here every week. I know what's going on. You don't have to tell me. Like I'm fully cool with it. And then towards the end of the game, they're having the time of their life. Their team's up like 2 scores now, and they're just like ridiculing you. And like that's the one negative of having season tickets. Like me and my homies, we're all sitting together in the same spots every week, and the brokers get in there to resell to away fans. So sometimes we get them surrounding us, and For the most part, it's just jokes and laughs. But every once in a while, especially when the team's like stacking L's and like coming off this 20 loss thing that we were just doing, it was really tiring. When you get like na, like, hey, goodbye out of your own stadium, it's not even like it just questions like, why am I doing this? Like why am I coming down here and like putting myself through this? Like if I was the away fan, like let me tell you, if the Jaguars do win their one game, I'm miserable to be around. If you're an away fan, you do not want to be by me, because I take all my frustrations out and just like joke, and I enjoy those last like 5 minutes of the game. You know what I mean? Um, I just say like avoid Eagles fans. Steelers fans in Jacksonville are terrible people. Steelers fans in Pittsburgh are some of the best fans, some of the best like people I've ever watched a football game with. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fans in New England when we went there. Tennessee fans are actually pretty boring. They're quiet. They just kind of there's no real juice in the stadium, which is kind of funny, I thought. Houston, the stadium was empty, so I feel like not a real experience. It was air conditioned though, so that was cool. But overall, most fans are lame. Like, so a lot of people think they're being funny and they're not being funny. It's just like tiring. It's the same old stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, totally. And it's kind of like here in Canada, people say Winterpeg when you're talking about Winnipeg. It's like, wow, well, you think I don't know it's cold? You think I haven't lived here 25 plus years? You don't think I go outside in January, it's minus 50. You don't think I know that? Like, oh wow, I thought we were living in Florida, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess I was wrong. No. Please tell me how your city is much colder. It's a dry or a damp cold or whatever. Excuse
That's
me.
it right there. Like, oh, Blake Bortles stinks. Thank you, bro. You're right. I never was aware of that before. Thank you so much.
No, I actually didn't get a chance to watch his throwing motion. Are you sure? Like, can you show me a replay one more time? Because I haven't seen it go underneath his hip. I think I saw it go over the hip a few times, but yeah, when people say that stuff to me, like, man, you're a Jags fan. Are you serious? Or they suck. Or you're the first Jags fan I've ever met. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. Every single time today at work, someone's like, oh, you're a Jacksonville fan? Gotta be the first I've ever met. I'm like, never heard that one before.
Right. Always. I mean, I hear that all the time in town. I'm like, what do you mean?
Like, you literally live in the town.
Yeah,
you live in the town where the team plays.
Everywhere. Yeah, it's just people. I think people just like don't have any relationship at home and they want to be heard, so they just go yell at strangers. But like I said, that's for another day too.
They think the Everbank Field is an echo chamber for their misery. So if that's what brings them to the stadium, then I guess it brings an income. So I must ask you as well, what team would you find the most enjoyment to see the Jaguars win on the road against? Like, what if you could just paint a perfect scenario, not in the playoffs? You go to any away game you want to see them play whoever, and you get to see them win. And let's crank up the interest on this. You can choose games from the past throughout your entire lifetime. If you could go back in time and change the results, or just be able to witness the result of one game in Jaguars history on the road, what would it be and why?
If I could go back and change any game in history, it would be 99 when we lost to the Titans in the playoffs, like let alone 2 times in the regular season. I was at that game. I was like 9 years old. That was probably when I knew like I was a Jaguars fan for life, because I was sad. Like, you're 9 years old and you're sad over something that you like just took interest in like a year ago tops. You know what I mean? Like, you're still figuring out football. There's a million rules. So if I could like go back, that would be the one. But I'm really glad that they lost, to the Rams in the Super Bowl on the Kevin Dyson stretch. Like, I am so petty that even though we didn't win, because I got to enjoy their pain from that, like, that also makes me happy. So like, a lot of people are going to be upset that I'm going to say this, but in the World Series right now, the Braves are playing the Astros. A lot of people in Jacksonville are Braves fans because knowing the Rays are like so new, and Miami's just as far as Atlanta away, and the Braves have history. So tons and tons and tons of Braves fans. I get more enjoyment out of the Braves losing and them being sad like me and the Jaguars than I do the Astros losing because they're cheaters. So even though they're my friends, I hope the Braves lose, and I'm probably going to, people are going to be upset because I'm going to continue to tell them this, but there's such a little bit of a petty side in me that even if I can't see my squad win, if I can see your squad lose, I'm happy too. But if I could go back and change any Jaguars result, it's the playoffs in technically 2000, but the 99 season. We're getting that thing flipped around and going to the Super Bowl.
would there be any game that you would want, or if you could paint a scenario into the future, like of any game that I guess has not happened, which team would you want to see the Jaguars beat in the road? Like, do you know you'd get the most fired up and you'd be in people's faces? And
Probably like if I could paint the scenario, the Jets and Zach Wilson are still awful, and we go up there and we beat them by like 50, because I think that'd be the funniest thing. Trevor Lawrence just balls out. Zach Wilson, it's like year 3 or 4. He's just god awful still. Something about that guy and like the whole draft pick 1, draft pick 2 thing. I really don't like the Jets anymore. I think their fans are obnoxious, just from like internet experience, not like real life. So I would get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing our guy smashing their guy like one more time. That like kind of kicks them out the door, where they don't like pick up the 5th-year option. They're like, this is your chance, beat Trevor Lawrence, and maybe you'll get another like NFL runaround retread. But nah, man, he's just gonna be trash, like 50-0. That's it for me.
I remember watching the game against the Colts in 2015. Like, I don't think I'd ever been so excited to watch a Jaguars game my entire life up to that point. Obviously, 2017 was way more exciting, but seeing them put up 50 on the Colts, like that was just so amazing, especially during the Gus Bradley era. Like, let's stop and think about that for a second. Gus Bradley led the Jaguars to the biggest margin of victory in a regular season game in franchise history. Like, that just to me is so bonkers.
It is nuts. And it's funny because like I feel like every regime has one of those games. Like we beat Tampa when Blaine Gabbert was the quarterback, like 40-something to 1 score also. And that was funny because it was like bad weather game. The Bucks are going to come in and run the ball over our terrible team. And like right off rip, like I think Gabbert threw 2 touchdown passes. And everyone's like, what's going on? Like, this is crazy. So it is funny how you say like Gus Bradley, has the largest margin of victory because he was such a clown show. But that's the Jaguars, man. That's what we're here for.
Who's been your favorite player to watch in the last 10 years? Because that's the when they've been the most brutal. When they were good, obviously watching Dave Garrard or Mark Brunell is like the most delightful treat, but it's been tough sledding. So who have you enjoyed seeing play for the Jaguars the most in the last decade?
In the last 10 years? A lot of people hate this answer. Jalen Ramsey for a couple of years was probably my favorite player to watch. I mean, he was just ridiculous. And the fact that they were good, for some of the years he was here. Pizlesny, a lot of people don't like him. I thought he was fun to watch, especially against fit in the run. I said it earlier, we sit in the end zone, so you can see the running lanes. It's really, really fun to watch linebackers and like safeties plug those holes up. And then Calais Campbell was fun. His little home run celebration, him and Yannick, like when we had those guys going. We've had a lot of good players, you know what I mean? Like individual players, a lot of fun players to watch, personalities, but unfortunately the quarterback hasn't been good. So, but I think we got that fixed now.
So of Jaguars quarterbacks in history, I guess aside from Trevor Lawrence currently, because we don't have a big enough body of work, how would you rank them 1 to 5? Because 1 to 3 is like, okay, we always put Brunel 1, but how would you rank Jaguars quarterbacks all time from 1 to 5?
So yeah, number 1, you want me to start at 1 or 5? I guess
go from 1 to 5 because it's probably easier.
All right, yeah, 1, we'll do Brunel. 2, Garrard. You ready for this? 3, Blake Bortles.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and then after that, it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, at 4, we could do Leftwich, and then I'll just throw Trevor Lawrence in at 5 because I've seen enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like
he's already thrown enough balls that no other quarterback in team history has ever thrown. So like,
yeah, if he doesn't end up the best quarterback, like something crazy happened, the world ended or something. Because that just watching him throw the ball, man, even in warmups, just the way it like comes out of his hand, it's exciting. It's legit. I'm so glad he's ours. I didn't ever think it would, happen. You're never gonna get the unicorn prospect, but finally did.
So aside from those guys you listed, who then would you put as the next best quarterback in Jaguars history? Because that's where
probably like Quinn Gray. I think Quinn Gray was like sneaky good.
You would put Quinn Gray over Chad Henne?
Yeah, I thought Chad Henne was terrible. I wouldn't give Chad Henne anything. No props. Anyone that played during that era, Gabbert, Henne, even like Todd Bauman, who's like a family friend, like for one game. Nope. Like not like I'd give it to Quinn Gray. I think Quinn Gray was like, he stepped in enough in like kind of cool moments, like Sunday Night Footballs, Monday Night Footballs, and won. And he was a local dude. He's from Jacksonville, so it goes.
Well, I mean, you can't really argue with that. There's not many other quarterbacks that really have reputable resumes that have played in Jacksonville, I know that there's always been the obscure players, I think, is what my friends and I find the most entertainment with. One of my best friends is a Titans fan, and we spent one whole class in university literally whispering jokes to each other about naming random players from the Jaguars. And he would name random players from the Titans. So we go back and forth as to how deep we can go in the tight end depth chart. I was like, oh yeah, Nick Jacobs or Clay Harbor. Like I remember seeing him play against the Bills in London in 2013 or whatever. Or no, they played Bills in 2015 in London, but playing against the Bills at home, 2013 in London. Or his name like Michael Pruitt or Jeff Swaim or just some random person. We'd always have a lot of fun because there have been a lot of obscure players that we've particularly taken note of who have been on the Jaguars. And I guess for him, the Titans, like Trevor Harris was a quarterback in preseason and he is a starter in the Canadian Football League. And I just found that so bizarre that he was on the Jaguars. Or Cleo Lemon, another guy that played in the CFL that was also on the Jaguars. And I have a Leftwich jersey, a stitched one. And my friend and I played ping pong, the one that likes the Titans, and we made a bet. If I lose, I have to wear a McNair jersey to school. If you lose, then you have to wear a Leftwich jersey. So I beat him, but then we made, I guess, a compromise where I just taped the number 1 over beside the 7 and put Lemon because he found it hilarious that Cleo Lemon played in the Jags. So we had a great time doing that. But are there any particular obscure players in Jaguars history that stick out to you that just like jump off the page? Maybe besides the Quinn Drake, or I guess outside of quarterback, as we've talked about.
Yeah, so like I have like random players that I think of because of like old video games. Like Jorge Cordova was a linebacker, and if anyone onside kicked against the Jaguars and you weren't like smart enough to pick the onside kick recovery play, he was like the up back who would just automatically recover it because of a broken game. So he's always up there high. Reggie Barlow.
Oh yeah,
he was like a returner.
Throwback Thursday.
Yeah, so man. So many, like Ashton Yabuti. That's an elite one. Yeah, that's probably, I don't know if you can still see me. My computer screen blanked out.
Oh, no, I can see you. Yeah, it's all good.
All right. I'm just going to keep going with you. I can't see you at all.
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. As long as you can keep rolling. Yeah. I would also think of someone like, I guess, because how I became a Jaguars fan was from my brother and I wanting to get more involved with knowing football. So we'd watch NFL Network and then we have a Dreamcast.
Okay.
And we would play NFL 2K, the original one. And we wanted to choose teams that were good. So we always kind of like the Chargers by default because that's what my dad liked when he came to Canada. And then I wanted to choose a team that was obviously different. So then the Jaguars, I liked the teal. It wasn't green, but it wasn't blue. And they were obviously really good. And I just rolled with it and then played Madden 07 after that. And they were also still good in that game. So I guess the only 2 games I could ever pull up where they were good are the ones I played. So then I just kind of stuck with it. But then after that, I had Madden 25. I was like, man, why did they suck? Like, why is Jordan Palmer like Jordan Todman, like Justin Forsett? Who are these people? But it kind of grew on me. And so that's why I have a lot of obscure names from like the late 90s teams like Alvis Whitted or Reggie Barlow, or I'm trying to think of a few other people. I guess they wouldn't be as obscure if they're good players, but.
Did you ever get to play Blitz on like 64?
Oh, I have. Yeah. NFL Blitz on Dreamcast. Yeah. It was on the system.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the NFL or Blitz 2000 was like Mark Brunell and Jimmy Smith and Fred Taylor and Kyle Brady. And that was like the most fun Jaguars team to ever play with on any video game.
Easily. Like that game was, and I also think the fun thing about that game was it almost seemed like the CPU auto corrected itself. If you were up too much, then they would really start to turn it on. But if it was a close game, then you would always have a fighting chance, which I think made for a very fun, entertaining old game, because new games now, how many people become Madden experts and can just smoke the CPU and all Madden. Whereas back in the day, like in NFL 2K, they just had rookie pro and all pro. There was no such thing as legend or whatever. I mean, I guess you would remember, you're old enough, but
yeah, no, I feel you.
What's your favorite NFL video game then of all time?
Ironically, probably like Madden, either Madden with Eddie George on the front, which was N64, or Madden 05, I think was like Donovan McNabb on Xbox. That's an elite one, and that soundtrack is a banger, top to bottom.
Yeah, Madden 07 I've heard is one of the ones that's up there as well. I really like that one.
Who's on the front of 07?
Sean Alexander.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I had them all. I don't know why I'm acting surprised, but yeah, no, the Sean Alexander too. That's my guy from Alabama.
What do you make of the Urban Meyer situation in terms of going forward into the future? With obviously there was a national media attention of the thing with him at the girl and at the bar and whatnot. So do you think that Urban is really just not competent enough to be an NFL head coach and he's going to be out after the next year? Or do you think that there's a chance that he can turn it around because he's just taking time for the team to really gel and find their groove?
So the best thing going for Urban when that happened was that there was like tangible success from week 1 to week 5. Like I said, because of that, I think it made, there was, while people were mad and, you know, calling him all the names and saying he's going to quit or get fired or this, that, and the other, it kind of like left a little bit in the back of your mind. Like, I mean, I hope he stays because things have been getting better. So for him to have gotten that win, and you saw how the players were treating him in the locker room, winning cures all. And I think at the end of the day, if they win 6 or 7 games, he's obviously coming back. I think if they win 5 or 6 games, he's probably coming back. But if they win anything like 4 or less, where it looks like the team just falls apart and they don't have any, you know, gusto, any want to for him anymore towards the end of the year. Because one thing about Gus Bradley and one thing about Doug Marrone, all the way until the end, the players played for him. So as long as that's like, we don't get to a point where the players aren't playing for him, I think he's going to be around for another year. He knows he's got Trevor Lawrence, and the offseason this past year for Urban Meyer was very difficult. I mean, he was inept. If he didn't have Balky, things would have probably gotten really crazy in terms of like, you know, just completely ruining yourself for the future. So I think he's going to continue to get better. I think he's going to look like Trevor Lawrence. He's in the sense of there's going to be a very noticeable difference. But the biggest thing he needs to do is he needs to get the fans back on his side. He needs to quit pouting on the sideline. Quit looking like someone stole his lunch money. Like, relax, dude. Like, it's not that serious. It was an incomplete pass. Like, don't lose your lunch over it. So I'm being more optimistic because I think if he's back around, it's a good sign for everyone involved. So yeah, that's kind of my answer. I'm pretty sure he's going to be here. I don't think he's going to be coaching at USC if that's, you know, where we're going.
I don't think I was necessarily going to go there because I think that that's just like the classic clickbait that the media loves to jump onto. I was just more so thinking like, is he really good enough to just coach in the NFL or not? Because you're right. I saw improvements, all the fans, the Bengals game, it was just unfortunate because you look at the worst play in football. Handoff from shotgun on 4th and goal from the 1. Literally the worst play you can ever run in the entire world. Like, unless you have William Refrigerator Perry behind, you know, standing beside your quarterback. But like, why go from the gun? The thing I don't like about the NFL as compared to the CFL is the fact that because you can't be a yard off the ball, people barely QB sneak. And when they do, they usually get stopped. And it almost looks like they fall on the ground straight up. Whereas in the CFL, every time it's, I guess we only have 3 downs. Every time it's 3rd and 1 or less, almost a guaranteed first down. So when the defense gets a stop, it's exciting. Whereas you usually expect the offense to punch it in. And I don't think that that's really the thing that happens in the NFL, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I get more of like not sneaking it against the Bengals it was, but they also had a situation against the Cardinals on the goal line where they got stuffed also. And the worst part was before we snapped the ball, the D-line shifted. They were right in front of us. The D-line shifted and it opened up the A gap. And there's no way we don't score if we run a QB sneak. So stuff like that, you're like, come on, Trevor, like, why wouldn't you, change into the play? Because they've told us that he has those abilities. But then you hear, down the road, well, we're not comfortable with him running sneaks. So that's why they didn't do it. And that's more on Urban Meyer or more on Bevel. But I don't think that like shows any ineptitude in coaching. I think that Bevel's actually a pretty good coach. I know a lot of people kind of get upset at him because he doesn't run the ball enough, but I think he's the least of our worries moving forward. And I think Urban Meyer, even though that was the guy he had issues with early on when we were hearing the, turmoil between the coaches, I think Bevel's kind of like his saving grace at this point. The offense is getting so much better, noticeably better. And the defense is playing just good enough to where they can win a couple games. And I think the defensive coordinator, Joe Cullen, is more of that was more of a safe play. Like, he's going to bring his defense and eventually he's going to get his guys in and they're going to play better than they're playing right now. Because on defense, they're missing some dudes, but as a whole, I think Urban's philosophy is real, but he can't be the one to, as we've said before, own it, +2 mentality, all this stuff, and then be the one to get busted in public. But they're grown men and not college football players, so I don't think they care too much. I bet if we asked the whole team 1 to 53 right now, they would all say they don't care anymore.
Yeah, honestly, and that's you're very right when you made the point of him looking like he's bent over on the sideline. He's about to have a heart attack because they turned it over or something happened. It's like, man, like just breathe. It's gonna be okay. Or like I think it was Tyler Shatley who like rubbed his shoulders after he was like freaking out during the preseason game. It's like, man, it's preseason in the NFL.
Yeah, relax,
like,
bro.
Don't worry.
No, you're totally right, man.
Well, Dilla, we're getting towards the end of our time, so I wanted to ask a few wrap-up questions to have a little more fun before we part for today.
Let's do it.
Who is the best Jaguars player that has played on defense in franchise history?
Good question. Oh, man. So normally my answer is the tackles, but if I have to go with one player in franchise history, one individual player, probably go Tony Brackens. If I had to go individual player, he was kind of the game changer on defense for the early successful teams.
Yeah, Tony Brackens with the famous scoop and score that he almost didn't even score because he didn't realize that he was.
He was just celebrating. It was like, oh crap!
A hilarious highlight for sure.
Yeah.
What is the most memorable or exciting play that you've witnessed as a Jaguars fan at the stadium?
Probably that kick six a couple weeks ago from Agnew. Before that, I would say probably the Hail Mary that Mike Thomas caught.
Oh yeah. What is the most miserable Jaguars game you've ever been to?
Oof.
Too many to think of right now.
Yeah, so many of them. The last time we played the Bears on the last cycle, so we played them last year, so it'd been 8 years before that.
12, right?
There were so many Bears fans there that they started a very audible like F the Packers chant, and I was like there's so many Bears fans here that they're like, making fun of the Packers and not even worried about the Jaguar game in front of them. So that was probably the most like brutal game I've been to.
Who's the NFL team that you dislike the most?
The Titans for sure.
That's a pretty fair answer. Which team do you dislike the most outside the division?
The Seahawks.
And why is that?
I think like from the time of the Legion of Boom on, they're just kind of annoying. So watching them lose is, again, it's me being petty. Like I said earlier, they're really good. So when the good teams lose, Russell Wilson's probably like been the best quarterback in the league as a whole over the last 3 years. So it sucks that he's hurt, but I'm very glad we don't have to play against him. And hopefully we win, because I think it's hilarious watching their fans like deal with a bad team now.
Which team do you think has the best coach in the NFL besides Bill Belichick?
The Steelers. Mike Tomlin is the best coach in the NFL.
Do you have a favorite college football team?
Yeah, I'm an Alabama fan.
Alabama. Yeah. Why do you like Alabama?
That's where my dad went to school. So just like growing up, same with the Jaguars. That's what we watched on Saturday.
Oh, that's fair. Because I know most people who would live in Florida would always cheer for like Gators, Seminoles, or the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
What's the most exciting college football game you've ever been to?
Oof. I mean, the most excited, like when I went to the Alabama Texas National Championship in Pasadena, that was probably the most excited I've ever been. That was Saban's first one at Alabama.
Oh, wow. Holy.
Yeah.
The final question I have for you is, what is the greatest sports movie of all time?
The Sandlot. 1 through 10. Sandlot, 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 Sandlot. It's the greatest movie of all time.
Well, there you have it. Dilla, it's been a great pleasure to have had you on today, man. I've had a lot of fun. Love talking Jaguars football with you. And I really appreciate all the insight that you've been able to give, and acknowledge you for the great work you've done in the Jaguars community, being able to bring positivity to a fan base that has needed it more than any other team in the NFL.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you for all those words.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode with Jaguars Twitter pundit, Dilla.